Our next speaker is Cindy Adams-Wining. She lives in Picton, New Zealand, and she's a parent who's been very active in the New Zealand Prader-Willi Syndrome Association for 34 years, including a board member for the New Zealand Prader-Willi Syndrome Association and with IPSWO. She's been involved with planning and running various transition and adult camps and workshops, currently runs all staff training in New Zealand. She sounds like New Zealand's Georgina, is that right? And she's passionate about people with PWS, leading their best life possible with dignity and respect. The title of her talk is Transition is the time your child moves from school toward and in... Is that the title of your talk? Transition from school. That's the title of the talk.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you. Transition is the time your child moves from school towards their adult life. That's the subject of my presentation today. Although for some of you it might be a little beyond school. Some of the people that I've been talking to in the last few days may still have their children or their child living at home with them, and they're no longer at school. So, you know, whatever this works for you, I'm hoping it's helpful. I wanted to start by saying, when is a good time to think about this process? While we're on that subject of where are you at in this journey, I had recently had a friend, a parent I should say, it is a friend, I've known this person for a long time, of a mid-teen young son, very high functioning, who were going through some major issues. Literally their life was crumbling, and she said, why did nobody ever tell me it was going to be like this? And I thought, I kind of felt a little responsible for that as a person who networked with families and supported them in different ways. And I thought, well, not everybody goes through the same, everybody's journey is different, not everybody may experience all those problems. But the more I thought about it, I believe that we have an obligation to educate, to be honest as possible, and as kindly and gently and respectfully as possible, as soon as possible. And what you do with that information after that is, I guess, you know, is your decision. So, what, have I done anything? No, but I've got to go that way. No, I've got to go this way. Right, it's not my laptop. And the words are really small. Okay, so how is transition different from people living with Prader-Willi syndrome? Well, it's no surprise to any of us in here is that there's the complexities that go with Prader-Willi syndrome that are probably evolving even more rapidly at the age of late teen, early adult, or the hormonal changes, or the mental health issues that may be going on, the social issues, the anxiety that people experience in trying to deal with change, and the environmental changes, new service, new people, new ways, all these things are major triggers for people with Prader-Willi syndrome. The challenging behaviours, obviously, that a lot of other people may not have the experience or understanding of. The inflexibility of actually being able to change, to adapt to new ideas, to be willing to listen to suggestions and advice. And they may be focused on a very particular path. So it all takes a lot of planning. A lot of thought must go into this process. Obviously, maybe the lack of knowledge and understanding of the syndrome and limited professional experience, limited options for appropriate placements. And this may be about personal choices, what a person likes to do in their life or may want to do, or literally being 200 metres from McDonald's, you know, things like this. All these things need to be considered. We've already talked about a lot of them. Often there is not enough funding to cover the level of support needed, and I firmly believe this is going to be an ongoing problem that we need to be thinking of all the time. Particularly in New Zealand at the moment, we're facing a lot of changes, and I'm not sure what it's going to look like in the future. And then we have the mental health complications that are kicking in. And sometimes it's not just for your child. Sometimes it's the whole family that might be experiencing some pretty challenging issues. I'm actually just going to skip the next, this one. Skip to the next slide. So, and adolescence itself is a notoriously difficult time for people living with Prader-Willi syndrome. We've got those pubertal differences, the development that's happening or not happening, widening gaps socially, emotionally, they're struggling at school perhaps, and dependence on familiarity and things that are going on around them. That widening gap with peers and siblings and their awareness of it and the impact that that has on them. Wanting and needing to have typical relationships and not understanding why they can't or why they don't work so well. There tends to be a higher prevalence in mental health problems and limited, we've talked about that as well over the last few days about how much access people have to services, particularly as your child gets older and beyond the years of 18. Changes in healthcare, moving from paediatric to adult services, and possible cessation of growth hormone. In New Zealand, it's only government funded to a certain age. A lot of families choose to maintain that dose if they can, but not everybody has that option. So that has a big impact on the health and well-being, physical and mental health of well-being of people with Prader-Willi syndrome. A strong desire for independence and grandiose ideas of their own abilities and what they might like to do. I mean, we've all got some wonderful stories and nobody wants to shoot them down, right? It's a dilemma I experienced, as a parent and many other parents I know. You just fight for your child the whole way through their life and you go, yeah, so what, Prader-Willi, big deal, you can do anything you like. But we do get to a point in life when actually you kind of hit the wall and you realise that, wow, actually there's a lot of things that we can't do. And this is that time and it's it's very difficult for everybody. And then actually changes equals anxiety as far as I'm concerned. You know, that word change frightens all of us because we have to help our person with Prader-Willi syndrome to get through that, our child, I should say. And any changes do need to be well planned and managed and negotiated and all those things. You'll know what I mean by that. And I think it's important to, I actually haven't got that in the slide, but I was thinking about earlier, I'll carry on, it will come up with what I'm going to say. Stop rambling. So when my child moves out, what will it look like? Or when your child moves out? Now, most likely, just in the environment that we're in nowadays, it will be a residential house run by registered providers. It seems to be the safest option. It could be in a mixed disability house where it's people with Prader-Willi syndrome or other disabilities, so it's mixed. I see we tend to be heading in the direction more of Prader-Willi specific homes, which originally in my many years I used to go, no, I didn't think that was a good idea. Actually, I think, once again, possibly because of the funding models and everything else that's going on, the expertise that we are gathering as well. I mean, man, when we get good agencies, staff, parents, groups, whatever, you don't want to lose those people. You want to give them the best opportunity, and so that we can have these centres of experience and excellence, or whatever you may want to call it. So I think that might be a direction that's going to be more prevalent. Respite care possibly for families who may still want to have their child at home, or their child is still living at home. So that means that either respite within your home, coming in to support your child, or supporting them out in the community. And supported individual living is sometimes an option, and however, and I think Tony's little slide proved that actually this just isn't sustainable for for people with Prader-Willi syndrome to be able to try to live in the community, even with support. It was just too hard to maintain the security and the boundaries that need to be in place to keep them safe. And what will they receive support to do? I mean, there's a list of things here that you hope that within your planning they will have vocational employment opportunities, community participation, and being involved in clubs and sports and groups and anything that's they're passionate or interested about, any possible education after school at polytechs, TAFEs, whatever you call them, to do personal development. I'm trying to think of the names of the courses. You know, a lot of them are about, you know, looking after yourself, becoming an adult, healthy relationships, all sorts of things. That are good for several years, but you can't stay there forever. And engaging in social activities and opportunities for developing relationships. And hopefully all these things will provide those opportunities. Have I moved? No, I've got to do it manually. No, I'm still there. Leaving school. And New Zealand and Australia have similar transition support services that help you plan for this process. And while your child is at school, that will hopefully be in place for you. In New Zealand, if students are always funded, that is part of their funding package. If not always means an ongoing resourcing student, I'm sorry, I'm a long way out of the educational area, but if not, you can use your individualised funding to purchase those supports, and that they will work with you to develop plans, goal plans, and they should be part of your IEP process to identify goals of strengths and interests and things that your child is interested in and what they might like to do. I mean, obviously, things change, they evolve over time, but you would want to start on what matters to them, not so that they don't just have to tick a box and try and fit in somewhere else. It's really about your child. I've just mentioned that. And this is what I also want to say, that it's really important to start this process early. Don't leave it like 6 months till about to leave. You know, oh gosh, he's going to be leaving school soon. What are we going to do next year? Start really early. You know, even perhaps when they're fairly new at high school, or you know, be prepared for when they're ready to leave. It doesn't mean it has to happen then, but these things do take time, and it gives time to feel things out. To actually, you know, I talked about having your student, and possibly by the time they've gone through high school, that your child is probably pretty fixed on what he wants to do, and that's either to be a chef or, you know, has something to do with food. And which is, look, hey, that's wonderful. It's great that we all have dreams. But if you give them enough time and offer enough suggestions and put the words out there and even use the communication that Hayley and Annika talked about today, you know, using your words to perhaps put suggestions of other things that could be in there, and get them to slowly switch around about what other things could be out there for them to do. Where are we at? So navigating that needs assessment service. In New Zealand, it's called the NASC, which is Needs Assessment Coordination, and I think your NDIS do this here, am I right? They will lead the need assessments, and it could also include other assessments, other psychological or intelligence assessments, or I don't know. I heard somebody say you do nothing but assessments through the NDIS, so, and I understand why. So you kind of got to work that game, and hopefully you've got supports within your organisation that you can tap into about other people's processes in this role as well. So all the funding that your child will get to move on to the next stage in their life is based on this assessment. So I think we're getting pretty good at this nowadays, but I can remember back in my day, you know, the needs assessment person would turn up and I'd be going, oh no, but we're really good at that. Oh, look, she's great. She can do this and she can do that, you know, because we'd worked so hard to make things happen. And I didn't want to say what she couldn't do. I was just so terribly proud of what she could do. And I realised then you actually have to paint a very honest picture about what is happening and what you need to get to where they want to be. Well, not you collectively need. So this is you kind of got to lay it all out in this process, and it's not typical. We are very proud and determined parents at this age, at this stage, I should say. We've been around the ropes a little while by the time our child's leaving school. Where am I at? Okay, moving on. Healthcare. Now, this is an important one as well. We talked about the important changes that happen when your child leaves the paediatric services and then into adult services. Parents, the patients usually receive less and sometimes no regular specialist checkup. I mean, I know in New Zealand we're a long, narrow island. We're very geographically spread out. If you don't live within 100 kilometres of one of the three main hospitals, you are very lucky to see specialists on a regular basis. Wow, okay. So you need to push for regular endocrinologist reviews, regardless of whether on growth hormone or not, because the hormonal differences that are happening in this age and stage of their life can create some serious issues. A young person's physical and mental health can go downhill rapidly without regular oversight, and it can sometimes be very difficult to undo. So plan ahead, be prepared. I'm just going to skip through some of them. I'll discuss as a family, obviously with your child, what is important for them in these areas, and so that you're well prepared for that engagement and assessment process and the choices that might be offered to you. And don't feel you have to take the first one. Find what works, and it might take several. Over the years, not everybody stays living in the same house they first moved into, do they? I mean, even as a typical person in our community. So we all move and grow and learn. So, it's, but I think the first step is a really important one, obviously. So what are the issues? Accessibility to services. Once again, we talked about the geographical supports. Sometimes there literally aren't a lot of choices. So maybe staying home, rather than moving into the wrong house, not making that move at that process. Each person's individual abilities. All our kids are different. Everybody has different ranges of ability. And then actually sometimes it's the perception of their ability that can be their undoing. The need to think outside the box for vocational activities and the sorts of things that you might be able to do. I'm thinking people who love dog walking, or I have another person who she was OCD almost, loved folding, washing and putting everything away. So she had a job ironing, taking in ironing for people and folding, washing and things like this. So, there's little micro industries out there that you might like to, you could look at. Often they are a safer option than trying to manage in the workforce, which is fine as long as the supervision stays there and they don't drop the ball. Balancing rights with health and safety. There is so much out there that we have to be aware of. The internet and the accessibility to people who may not have our children's best interests at heart. Their financial independence, managing money, the rights when they turn 18, and to the rights to make risk and their own decisions and learn from those mistakes. This is a hard time for us as parents to be able to actually do that, to let that go and to be able to balance it. These are all the things that you will need to think about for that transition stage. And, oh golly, okay. Right, I'm just gonna, leap of faith. It is a leap of faith for parents. And I'm sorry to have to say this, but it is very difficult sometimes to completely trust service providers and agencies. You are the expert on your child's needs, and I think that's something that needs to stay prominent in whatever it is that you do. You need to stay in the forefront. Those providers may have limited skill at entry level, and you can't assume that they're just going to take on the information that they need. Compulsory regular training is essential, and it's important that you ensure this happens and regularly, because staff change a lot. Regular system reviews and staff meetings and analysts, and that you want to be kept informed. It doesn't mean that you're the helicopter parent, but that if there are issues, You're the one that's more likely to be able to solve the answers in an emergency should they be needed. Plan ahead, we talked about, I'll keep going. Legal options is another one that you need to be considering, and the role of your family and other members in your family in the future. Letting go as a parent. No, I've just summarised this one, but being able to let go of some things but never let go of others. I guess that's probably, well, you know, the one from this one. And you will, it's a journey. Right, I'm running out of time. Impact on the family, planning. Impact on the family. Planning and implementing this change is extremely time-consuming. It's exhausting, actually. I think this is the hardest stage of the life as a family. You know, you are probably trying to hold down a job, you know, full-time jobs, a busy family. You've probably got a few hormonal issues yourself going on. You know, like all this stuff is just dumping. It dumps on you. And also, I personally find a lot of people, there's a bit of a disconnect when you get to this age because your kid ain't cute anymore, you know, and everybody else is moving on with their life and you are, you're trapped. You know, you're not trapped. You are trapped. You are trapped. I'm trying to be so PC here. And it can be really lonely. Nobody understands. Nobody else except the people sitting with you in this room know what it's like to be you at this stage. And it's a really, really difficult time. So, okay, that's actually part of the next slide, but I'm going to look, I'm ahead of myself.
No, you're not. You're over time. Over time.
You are always going to be advocating for your child. That's also one thing. That not other parents don't have to do that. So advice for you. I'm sorry, this is so rushed. Be prepared. Have a good plan. As a family, you know, collectively as a family, and obviously your child with Prader-Willi syndrome is in the middle of this. Have that safety net and look after yourselves. That's what I'm talking about, the weight of this at this stage in life. See if you can have people that you can talk to and may understand what it is that you're going through. Make sure that your health is good. Look after yourself. Get exercise. Get enough. One less gin and tonic. Just one less gin and tonic. And, you know, because if you're not well, you can't do this job well. And if your relationship with it, you know, within the family is hard to do this as well. Don't rush into that decision making. Explore all options so you make good choices, and try to maintain good communication together, and obviously with whoever is working with your child, and stay involved with that. We can step back, but don't walk away. And keep focused on what's happening for your child, and celebrate. Pat yourself on the back, or whatever it takes when things are going well. There will be 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, but you will get there. Right.